it, don't let confuse it. Only then you'll be God. Feel like, feel like, feel like that. Feel like, feel like, feel like that. Feel like that. Lay your arms around me and stay with me. Feel like that. Lay your arms and stay with me, baby. Feel like that. Lay your arms around me and stay with me. Feel like that. Lay your arms and stay with me, baby. Drawing aside, can't wait to start. You should call the police. Now I even can't breathe. You love me and hate me, true me and false me, make me your shining star. Giving, receiving, changing, believing, only then we could start. Feel like, feel like, feel like that. Feel like, feel like, feel like that. Feel like that. Lay your arms around me and stay with me. Feel like that. Lay your arms and stay with me, baby. Feel like that. Lay your arms around me and stay with me. Feel like that. Lay your arms and stay with me, baby. Stay, 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 stay.
So, as an update from the little montage that I did before, it is now several days later and I have not touched it. I have not touched the story, I haven't touched the manuscript, I haven't done anything with it. And so I'm just coming to the conclusion that though I will obviously not, shoot myself in the foot and say that, oh no, I can't do it, I can't finish it for NaNoWriMo, I am having to accept that that might be the way that this goes, and that's okay. I think also the fact that it wouldn't let me classify it as like an actual NaNoWriMo event, I think because I wasn't doing 50,000 words, because my original story was only like 25, because it's not a full-length novel. It's not a full-length adult novel. It's a kid's novel, probably somewhere between 5 to 8 and 9 to 12, which obviously can be novel length, but for this one, though it probably will end up with more words than that in the end, it's never going to be anywhere close to 50,000, I don't think, just simply because I'd have to fill it with so much BS to make that word count. But yeah, I haven't touched it, I haven't done anything with it. It is about 8 days until the end of NaNoWriMo, it's the 22nd today, and like I said, haven't touched it, probably won't touch it. Might do, might not, but especially because at work we're starting to gear up for Christmas, so I'm just going to be busy, and when I'm not at work I'm going to be preparing for Christmas myself by, going shopping and getting little bits and pieces and trying to see, people before the new year and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna finish it, probably not. And I've just accepted that that's okay. That is just something that has happened. I mean, it does give me a little bit of an existential dread, because it's like, oh, well, if I don't finish it now, when will I finish it? Especially as, like, the way I was typing it, I was adding stuff to it, obviously, and sort of, like, not even reading it back, but just glancing over what I've read, I was like, oh, this is gonna need at least one more edit. And considering I've been writing it for, I think I was writing it for about 2.5 years. And then it took me about a year to get round to editing it. And then it's taken me another 6 months to finish editing and actually start typing up the edits. Part of me is just like, oh god, when are we gonna be finished with this? Like, the rate that you work isn't good enough. It's not in terms of, like, because I don't have any external deadlines, and I think that's part of the problem, is that there is not yet any consequences for me not doing it, apart from it just not being out there. And part of me, and I do want it out there, like, because I do occasionally consider, you know, like, self-publishing and stuff like that. And I do know that you can get it self-published and get it into bookstores, like, there is a way to do that. You just kind of basically have to, like, haggle with, like, business and shop owners and stuff like that. So I do know I could go self-publishing, but I do also, like, obviously have, as I think a lot of people do, even people who do end up going into self-publishing do kind of originally have that idea of being traditionally published, and, you know, having that breakout debut novel or story or whatever it is, and, you know, being able to, you know, sign hundreds of thousands of copies and seeing it in a bookshelf, and, you know, all that good stuff. And it's getting to the point where I'm like, I guess I just don't want to, like, get to the point where I give up on the bit, because part of it is I want my book in bookshops. Like, I want people to be able to go out and buy it. Like, I don't want to have to go through Amazon. Like, even though I know my book will end up on there, well, I say will, like, you know, however I publish my book would end up on Amazon, but I didn't want that to be, like, my sole publishing point, I guess. I'm rambling, I'm probably gonna cut some of this out, but yeah, I hearing how long it takes to get, like, find an agent, and then find a publisher, and then agree on stuff, and then, you know, having to hope that, like, the illustrator and stuff that they get is matching with what I've written and fits and is something that I like. Because obviously I've heard horror stories of people being like, yeah, I was gonna go traditional publishing, and then someone drew the front cover and it was hideous as heck, or just didn't match this, or didn't match the vibe of the book, or they completely drew the character wrong, like, you know, completely wrong, like complexion, or, you know, hair colour or height or whatever it was. And I was like, oh god. So part of me was like, would they accept if I did the illustrations for that? But at the same time, like, I draw pretty freeform, and my art is definitely not, like, commercial in any way. So I don't think that's really an option either. So part of me is like, oh yeah, I'd love to be able to control everything, and, you know, like, make my own artwork, and, like, control, like, this, that, and the other, and the typeface and all that kind of stuff. And part of me is like, no, I'd rather leave all of that to someone else. And also, once again, bookshelves. And like I said, I know there are probably ways that you can get stuff on shelves as a self-published author, but like, I am a very anxious being and I just like the idea of someone else being able to do all the scary work for me. Thank you. And also, it'd be nice to work with other people, I think, on something. And obviously, if I send it around tons and tons and tons of like publishers, and it's getting to the point where no one's going to accept it, or if they did, I'd have to change like the core of the story. Then yeah, I probably would end up having to like self-publish or something. But hopefully it wouldn't get to that point. Like, hopefully at least a little publisher would want me. Like, because I'm not fussed about it being like Big Five or anything like that. Like, I'm not fussed about it being a huge company with lots of money. I just don't want to go it alone. And I think that's the crux of it. Like, I want it in shops, and I don't want to have to do the haggling myself. But yeah, it is just like, how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take me to do this? And like, because that's the thing, the rules that say like, oh, the rules, the advice that says things like, oh, you know, write every day, always make time for your writing, and that's sometimes not that simple. Like, I have certain conditions, I'm not going to go into them, but I have certain conditions that basically mean that like sometimes I just can't do anything, like just straight up, like, especially if I've been at work all day, I can't do anything in the evening, like my brain is not functioning. And then even on days off, like, my brain just cannot focus on it. It's not going to focus on it. It's not going to do anything. And then obviously I have, like, I just can't do it. Like, I cannot write every day. And every time I try, like, I even try, you know, I've tried, like, you know, positive reinforcement. I've tried negative reinforcement. You know, I've tried everything, but my brain just figures out there's no actual consequences if I don't do this. Like, nothing changes if I don't do this. Like, you can get the reward anyway, like, you're an adult, you can just go grab it. And also, like, you'd be the one punishing yourself, you can just not punish yourself, like. And I know that I could have, you know, like, what should we call it? People, like, responsible for keeping that there. But then I can just, like, not do that. So I'm very much, far too much aware of my own autonomy. And it's not good. Because I'm like, there is no consequences to my actions at all. Like, yeah, I don't have the dream, but my day-to-day life doesn't happen to change. Like, and I know that needs to change. And I know that, like, because, you know, they are my dreams because I want to do them. Like, I do want to be an author and stuff like that, but it's just really hard. Because the problem is, like, people say, like, oh, you need discipline, not motivation, but if I don't have the motivation, there's no point even trying to build up the discipline, because, like, that first point doesn't happen. Like, I need the motivation to get the discipline, but as soon as the motivation disappears, so does the discipline. So it's like, that's the way it be. Like, I don't think I've managed to do anything properly, like, stick to it properly since I left uni. Like, since I had, like, an external timetable. So I don't even think it's, like, consequences or rewards or anything like that anymore. I think it's just like, I do not have a structure that has been set in place by someone else of a higher authority within a certain academic system, because that's all I've known all my life. And as soon as that went, all my motivation went, all my discipline went. All that's left is just this chaotic bundle of creativity that comes out in spurts, and I don't know how to control it, which is why it's taken me like 5 years to write one very short book. Yup. Like, it's very demotivating to realise that you're not motivated at all. But at the same time you are. Like, you're like, I do want to do this, I do want to write this, I do want this to be finished, like, but you don't know how to translate that into actual action. Like, there's such a disconnect between my body and my brain sometimes that it's just like, yeah, we want the thing, but we don't want to do anything to get it. And this isn't even from like a place of entitlement or anything like that. Like, you know, like I wasn't a pampered kid or anything like that. You know, I wasn't handed everything on a silver platter. Like, my mum was like, no, you gotta work for what you want. You know, I had to work for my pocket money when I was younger. You know, things like washing dishes, cleaning my room, helping with the garden, stuff like that. And then I was made to get a job quite young. I think I was about 16, 17, and I got 16-ish when I got my first job. So basically straight out of secondary school, I got my first job. And then as soon as I, you know, passed sixth form, I went straight to university and went straight from university into a job. Finished that job, and then I had a massive mental breakdown, and I think I'm still recovering from that, to be honest. It's been like 3 years, because I finished that job the Halloween of 2019, and then obviously we had lockdown. And then I went on universal credit, and I was very, very careful, because obviously they want you to look for jobs, they want you to be looking for jobs of a certain type and all this kind of stuff. And the problem was, at this point, so I'd had my first job that I got straight out of sixth form, which wasn't too bad, but I was still incredibly stressed the entire time, because there was basically 4 of us working in a very, very busy cafe. Then I worked a job that was stressful because it was so empty, and then they just stopped giving me hours. And then my third job was at a very fancy hotel, where I had to get up stupidly early while living in a uni house with flatmates that didn't stay quiet. And obviously, because it's a very fancy hotel and I had a very clear northern accent, I was treated like absolute garbage. So I had a bit of a mental breakdown after that one as well. And then I'd obviously just come out of a office job, which had been very, very stressful, and I had basically been overworked and underpaid, statement of the century, because I was basically an apprentice doing a full-time paid job, like, which was not fair. I should have just been doing bits and pieces, but instead they made me do everything, which I was not paid to do, but there you are. Which obviously then, well, like I said, gave me a bit of a mental break, so a bit of a mental breakdown, a complete mental breakdown. Like, I was a mess. I was a wreck. I was absolutely useless at everything. I don't think I could even use a stove properly for a couple of months because I just couldn't do anything. Like, it wasn't depression. That it wasn't. It was basically just intense anxiety. And so when they were like, right, okay, start looking for jobs, I was like, right, okay, I'm going to be very careful that I know what the job is, I know what the tasks are, I know what's expected of me, I know how much holiday pay, I know how much rest time I get, I know who I can turn to help if I'm getting stressed. And so I was very, very picky with what I applied for. And so I was applying for barely anything, because anyone who knows the job market knows that most jobs, they just leave you high and dry in terms of like, they're like, the jobs where you're doing them for the money. You're not doing them for your health or your well-being or because you enjoy it. You're doing it because you get paid every month or 2 weeks or whatever. And I was like, no, I can't deal with that. Like, I've just come out of like a horrendous crisis. Like, I'm not doing that. And so I was being very, very careful. And my job coach at the time was understanding for a bit. And then she just started getting more and more frustrated with me. And then at one point she was like, it doesn't matter if you hate the job, you just have to apply for it. And that basically, the stress of that and what was expected of me and what they were anticipating that I had to do pushed me into another mental breakdown. Unsurprising, honestly. It's like, oh, that thing that you were trying to avoid, you have to do it. Yeah, not the best thing to say. But thankfully, she classified me as a difficult case, and I got given to someone, passed over to someone else who basically took, I say, look, like, this was over the phone, so it takes one listen at me and goes, yeah, you're not well, so just keep putting in, like, sick notes until you feel at least vaguely put together to have a normal conversation. And then, yeah. So it's kind of like, I think I'm still recovering from all of that, even though that was like, oh no, that was only a year ago. No, that was only a year ago, so that makes sense, yeah. So, yeah, I'm still kind of recovering, I guess. But at the same time, I think I just get worried that this is like my new normal, which is just completely like stuck and muddling through with like spurts of motivation that with no hope, like, because everyone's like, oh yeah, you have to stick at discipline, you can make discipline, you just have to do this, that and the other, and I'm like, the steps to get the discipline and the core principles of the discipline aren't, I'm not high enough functioning to achieve those. I cannot have the discipline because I don't have the brain power to follow through with it. So it does make it really hard when the longer something, you don't have the, you know, discipline and the motivation to stick at it little and often or lots and often or whatever, but then you also get more and more demotivated the longer things take, so it's really hard. And especially as I was like, oh yeah, like Camp NaNoWriMo, like, you know, I finished editing in Camp NaNoWriMo and I was like, oh, I'll finish typing it up in NaNoWriMo and it'll be great. And then, yeah, that's the problem. Like, I'm good with something as long as I keep doing it, but once I stop doing it once, that's it, I'm done. But sometimes you can't avoid missing a day, like maybe you're sick or something comes up or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, I went on holiday at the start of November, so I basically started NaNoWriMo and then went on holiday and then just picked it back up like once, which was the one you saw in the video before, and then just didn't pick it back up again. Like, just straight up, I haven't touched it. You know, I'm still like 4 chapters into a 22 chapter book, and I haven't touched it. And it's the 22nd of November, and I don't think I'm going to touch it, just because the thought of doing it brings me so much stress. So that's where we are right now, which is a real shame, because like I said, being an author, being a published author, is one of my dreams. That's one of my goals in life. That's something that I want to do. That's something I want to be. That's something I want to be known as. And it's really upsetting to know that my own brain it's really upsetting to know that my own brain is denying me that. Like, my own lack of motivation for something that I should be, like, if I'm not motivated to do this, what am I motivated to do? And that's really, really depressing to think about, honestly. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Sorry, this isn't like the great, like, oh yeah, like, sorry I haven't checked in. I've just been so busy typing up my story. I'm nearly finished. Like, I'm way ahead of schedule. I've just had so much to do. And I'm like, no, I've basically been at work 2 days a week. And the rest of the time I've just been kind of zoning out. Which is a shame. Like I said, it is a shame, but that's just what I'm capable of right now. And I think it's also, the problem is my brain's just full of Christmas at the moment. So I don't know if maybe next Camp NaNoWriMo in April, I think the next one is, or maybe March, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll be able to get something done then, but yeah. Who knows? I might randomly get a spurt of motivation, you know, and bash it all out in one evening. Doubt it, but I'm obviously not gonna, like I said at the start of this, I'm not gonna shoot myself in the foot and say, like, it's not happening. I'm going to stop myself if I ever get the urge to do anything, but I'm also not gonna push myself either, because I think pushing myself to try and do it within this month is part of the reason why I haven't done it within the month. And ain't that just the way? Right. Well, I'll see you next time. Bye.